Mazcab Raids in RuneScape 3 are not really talked about anymore, but Beastmaster Durzag, the first boss of the raids, is actually pretty fun and pretty rewarding. I have been running this boss a lot because I play on an iron and it's pretty much essential to Ironman this boss yourself. And so in this video I'm going to run through how to get into this boss and why you should, how this boss can improve your overall PVM ability, and what other kinds of rewards you can expect. Good day, everybody. Running a full Mazcab raid fighting Beastmaster Durzag and Yakamaru is actually quite challenging and requires coordination from a large team, typically through Discord and typically through voice chat. And Yakamaru in particular is very difficult if you're not used to him yet. Beastmaster Durzag, on the other hand, can be one of the easiest, if not the easiest, group boss in the entire game. And scales all the way up to a pretty challenging experience depending on what role you take in a team. So, throughout this video I'm going to walk you through, very simply, the roles involved in a Beastmaster Durzag team, how you can get in, as well as how you can find a group chat or a friends chat to find a team, since that's probably the most difficult part actually. Please use the timestamps as well in this video to jump around to whatever part of this video interests you the most. So why should you run Beastmaster Durzag? A lot of regular main accounts nowadays don't really run Beastmaster or full raids because pretty much all the most useful rewards from this experience you can just buy for pretty cheap. Namely, the Mazcab ability codexes, I think, are still hovering at around 30 million right now. These unlock abilities like Corruption Blast and Shot, Storm Shards and Shatter, and Onslaught. These are some of the most powerful abilities that you can buy for very cheap. That being said, Beastmaster Durzag is much more popular, I think, with Iron accounts, and there are many Iron clans and FCs that run this boss very casually with very loose gear and skill requirements, because actually running this is the only way to unlock those ability codexes for Iron Man and Iron Women accounts. But even on a main account, this boss is still worth running and learning for various reasons. A typical run takes less time than the duration of one overload potion, so a typical run, a slow run will take like 5 minutes, maybe 6 minutes. A solid team will run this much faster than that. And rewards typically range in the 1 million GP range. At least most of my Beastmaster rewards have been about that monetary value. When you get a rare reward like a Mazcab Codex, that's a solid 30 million. Scratch that, 50 million actually. Whoa, they went up since I last checked prices. No idea why, honestly, but yeah, that's pretty good. You also get untradeable tier 90 tank armor pieces from Beastmaster Durzag rarely. They are untradeable, but they high out for 7 million or several million each. More on that towards the end of the video because there is a way to squeeze the most money out of that. But killing Beastmaster Durzag will also get you Techie, the currency of this Mazcab area. So even if you don't get explicitly a rare drop, you will still get Techie and common drops over time, and then you can eventually just buy a Mazcab ability codex or armor pieces and alch or sell those for extra cash. So that's all the financial incentive to run Beastmaster, up to several million for 5 minutes of your time. The other incentive is to improve your PVMing ability if you are looking to do so. Okay, if you're in the same shoes as me where you're still trying to break into higher level bosses and are having trouble learning defensives and handling multiple mechanics at once and things like that. So in this guide, I'm going to run over how to do a few of the basic roles. DPS, the 2 pet tank roles, and North Chargers. The other roles that are typically taken in Mazcab raids are someone taking South Chargers / backup tank and the base tank. Those 2 could merit their own video, so they're not in here, and also I haven't really tried those roles yet, so I can't speak on them much. I only tried to base tank one time, non-voluntarily, when the actual tank died, and Beastmaster made pretty short work of me because I don't know how to handle those mechanics yet, so yeah, a little more complicated. So let's discuss these basic roles, yeah? Starting with DPS. Every team should have 10 people, and half of those will be DPSers. Your only job, aside from not dying, is to literally just DPS everything in the arena. There is not much at all to think about here, aside from, as I mentioned, staying alive. If you're an Iron doing this in a Iron clan, you can get away with pretty loose gear, and most people just do an animate dead setup for the best survivability. If you're in a mainscape clan or friend chat, you will probably be required to use power armor and decent DPSing gear. Depends on the clan, I'll get more into that later. There is only one mechanic that you need to worry about as a DPS, and it has to do with Durzag's relationship to his pets. So this is a good time to go over the whole flow of the fight, actually. The fight does not start with Durzag, the fight starts in the arena with nobody there. When the leader starts the fight by freeing the gobies or whatever, you'll just get waves and waves of iRoot and chargers, which are these dogs that can barge you and hit pretty heavy with melee. You'll go through a few waves of these as they just come out and keep coming out, so you just kill them. About halfway through these waves, and you'll see the number of them remaining at the top there, Durzag's first pet named Corms will appear. The person designated as Pet Tank 1/3 will be tanking that one and getting its attention. Your job as DPSer is to kill it and kill everything else in the arena. Take care to stay far away from Corms because all the pets have little area effects when you stand too close to them and can be very damaging. At least I'm pretty sure Corms does. The other two pets for sure do. But anyways, after that, you just keep going through the waves and kill everything that's left. And then, finally, Durzag will come out with the second pet next to him. At this point, the Pet Tank 2 player will get that pet's attention and tank that. Which of the two remaining pets spawns with Durzag is random. They both have 700,000 HP, and when this pet reaches 500,000 HP, Durzag will call the remaining one. And that's the gist of the fight. Throughout the fight, Durzag will also spawn more chargers and cages and then release them and spawn little bombs that explode and deal magic damage unless the players collectively disarm them. But the important part for DPSers here to know is that a few things. So, Durzag can be damaged. He has 1.5 million HP. He can only be damaged for half of that while his pets are still alive. So, if Durzag hits 750,000 HP and either of his pets are still alive, he won't take any more damage. The flip side of that is that whenever one of the pets dies, one of the two remaining pets, Durzag gets a buff that makes the world a lot harder for the base tank and backup tank, and for the players in the area, because Durzag's damage is drastically increased, the damage that he deals when each pet dies. Also, the number of magic bombs that he throws out in the arena increases a lot when a pet is killed. DPSers should also be aware that you need to stay far away from Durzag and not too close to each of the pets either, because they each can do area damage that affects you a lot. Specifically, Durzag deals very, very high damage that can kill you fast if you stand near him. Durzag mainly deals melee damage to his primary target, aka the base or backup tank, but with each regular melee attack, he also shoots out a bunch of spikes from his back that deal range damage to everybody else, even at a far distance. So, if you're struggling and taking a lot of damage from Durzag, pray ranged and heal as needed. Otherwise, you can soul split or flick soul split. The general strategy for a DPSer is to keep an eye on Durzag's health and keep an eye on the health of the pet tanks. Generally speaking, all players should focus on the pets until they're at about 150,000, or I would say more like 100,000 HP. At that point, leave them alone and focus your damage on Durzag instead. This is to make sure that the pets are not killed off too quickly, so that the base tanks don't struggle for a prolonged amount of time during the fight. And also make sure that the pets don't take too long to kills. If Durzag reaches 750,000 HP already and the pets are far from dead, that means Durzag will just sit there at 750,000 HP, not taking any damage until the pets are killed. So use your best judgment. And the ideal is to have both pets die right when Durzag is at 750,000 HP. If it's close, your best bet is to just stay on Durzag and wait until the pets are dead. The last thing to pay attention to as DPS during the Durzag part of the fight is the chargers that he periodically spawns in the arena and cages. If you see them giving people trouble, or if people are about to die because they're getting piled by them, it's a good idea to shift focus and clear some of those out. Otherwise, they don't trouble people too much. If you see them hassling the base tank or the backup tank, it's a good idea to clear them, but otherwise, stay focused on Durzag and just use area of effect attacks to clear the chargers passively. It is more important to stay focused on Durzag and kill him faster than to waste too much time clearing out chargers. That was a lot of information. I don't know if it sounds overwhelming to you or not, but believe me, it's not as bad as it sounds. The easiest way to get used to all this is to just get into a fight as a DPSer. This is how you should start during your first few encounters, to learn this a little bit and learn the flow of things. It is not as bad as you might think it sounds. It's very easy to get used to, and you'll have a large team with you. So just your main job is to not die. Flick prayers appropriately, eat as you need to, and you'll be okay. The next role, or roles I should say, are the pet tanks. So there are 2 players per team that will take these roles, and they are split up as Pet Tank 1/3 and Pet Tank 2. The job of the pet tanks is to get the attention of the pets and just tank them while they and everybody else DPSs them down and kills them. For these roles, you must have Provoke on your ability bar because you will need this to get their attention periodically, and the pets have a habit of losing interest in you and running away to the base tank, which is the worst thing that can happen, or to other players. So you will periodically need to provoke them back to get attention back on you. The main difference between the 2 pet tank roles is how many pets you'll be tanking and in which order. So I mentioned that before Durzag comes out, during the waves of Iroot and Chargers, the first pet emerges. Pet Tank 1/3 takes this one. It's pretty easy since everybody will be focused on it and the Chargers, so it goes down pretty quick. At the start of the Durzag fight, I mentioned earlier that the second pet comes out with him. That one is the responsibility of Pet Tank 2. So Pet Tank 2 is a little bit easier if you're just getting into this because you only have to worry about 1 pet, and it's really obvious when it shows up. And then once the third pet emerges, that is the job once again of Pet Tank 1/3. Now all pet tanks have to be careful to keep the pets far away from the base tank. Typically the pet tank players will lure the pets to the opposite corner of the arena. You'll see that the base tank typically lures Durzag to the southeast corner. I had to check the map. So it's a good idea to lure the pets to the northern corners. This is for a lot of reasons, but mainly these 2 pets do deal area damage and stun and things like that, whatever, various bad effects to players that are underneath them or very close to them. That's why I mentioned earlier, as a DPSer or any role, you should stay away physically from the pet tanks. Also, Durzag applies a enrage stack mechanic, or stacks of enrage, to his target, aka the base and backup tanks, and these stacks increase the damage that the target takes. And Durzag's pets can also apply stacks of this to his target, so the base tank's life will be very miserable if you don't lure the pets away from them. But really, both these roles are pretty simple. Provoke and walk away from Durzag so that the pets just tail you. You'll have all the other DPSers helping you with the pets until, like I mentioned earlier, the pets reach about 100,000 HP, and then you can just knock them down yourself. It's a good idea to bring dual wielding set up for this so that you can switch to a shield or a defender. I myself just have a tier 70 defender at this point for all styles as my best in slot shield. It's more than plenty. The 2 pets that come out during the Durzag phase, one hits with magic, one hits with range primarily, so it's easy to pray against them. They attack pretty slowly. They each have various little debuffs they can apply to you. I'm not even going to go into them because I don't know them that well myself, because I never looked into it, because it's not that important. If you're praying against the correct style, you should be fine with just eating, especially if you're able to get away with Animate Dead. If not, you're still fine. Just eat as needed and practice using defensives. Resonance helps, Reflect, Debilitate, and you probably won't even need Devotion, but it's there. I like being pet tank because it's just a good way to practice your shield defensives and cycling those. The third and final role I will go over in this video is called North Chargers. So all around the arena there are cages of chargers, and these chargers are released shortly after Beastmaster enters the arena. The North Charger has the responsibility of going one by one to each of these cages and opening them up. This will aggro the charger inside to you. You open up all the cages on the north end, get all the chargers on you, and then run to the southwest corner. The player who is the backup tank / south chargers will be doing exactly the same thing along the south wall. The reason to bring them to the same corner is so that you and the south charger player can just get them all bundled in one area and AoE the crap out of them and clear them out very quickly. These roles are important because they prevent all the chargers from randomly going for whichever player is nearby. They do hit pretty hard with melee if you're not praying against it or protecting against it, so it can make quite a mess. However, if you are in this role and you're just protecting melee, by the way, I strongly recommend having the Enhanced Devoted perk on your gear. Generally speaking, but especially for this role, it can protect you a lot. Otherwise, you can just use the regular Devoted ability and cycle defensives here as you need to. After they are wiped out or mostly wiped out, the South Charger / backup tank will run closer to Durzag, start DPSing him, and then act as backup tank as needed. In the case that you can see here, the South Charger ran over a little bit early. He still had some chargers on him, so I cleared them out for him. Now, it depends on who you ask, which players you ask, but this role is not necessarily any harder than the pet tank roles, even though there are multiple charges on you. With Enhanced Devoted or just Devoted, like I said, and some defensives, you should be totally fine, and you'll clear them out very quickly. The trickiest part of this role, at least for me, is that if you're too slow, you'll miss a lot of chargers. At least, I've tried this role only a few times, and each time I wasn't able to get all the chargers. I moved as fast as I could, but the cages just opened, and some of them got away. But I was able to just chain or, AoE them and aggro them towards me anyways, and then run to the corner, and it mitigated most of the mess that all of them would have made anyways. So, those are the basic roles. Those are how you fight Durzag. I like these roles, as I mentioned, because this is the easiest way to get into this type of encounter, starting as a DPSer and then gradually moving your way up to a pet tank or North Charger, and maybe even South Charger / backup tank once you're feeling really comfy with it, and then on to base tank. The very good thing about eventually being capable and learning how to be base tank is that you can form your own teams pretty easily if you want to do this encounter a lot. And that brings me into finding teams, which, as I mentioned earlier, might be the most difficult part of this encounter. So I'll start with irons. If you're on an iron account, which is typically tend to be the players most interested in actually doing this encounter, you'll have an easy time. I will list a few iron clans in the description below that do Beastmaster runs fairly frequently. And they are very friendly and they are very open on gear restrictions. You'll see even in the videos here that there are some players in like Gothic staffs and lunar armor because they are just low-level irons who need Mazcab codexes and other irons get it. So it is pretty much leeching at that point if you're in that low level of gear, but other irons get it, and then there's not any restrictions against that in these clans typically unless otherwise stated. That being said, if you're running that kind of gear, you will probably just be sticking to DPS, and if you're going to be doing any of the other roles that involve defensives at all, you should have better gear. If you are non-iron and want a casual experience like this, you will rarely find it, but sometimes, sometimes, there are not enough irons to fill a team, so the iron clans will go out into like PVMing FC or whatever, or reach out to their mainscaper friends and recruit a few people from there. But as a mainscaper, your primary source of finding a Beastmaster team will be in regular PVMing FCs. I will also list a few of these in the chats below. I have only really tried PVMing FC, which is, I think, probably the biggest friend chat for PVMing teams in general. As a general rule, I think in any of these FCs, I mean, be sure to read the rules on the forums for each one, because they do have rules and they will kick you or whatever for doing or saying certain things. But as a general rule, do not go into one of these FCs and say, looking for a team, and I'm not tanking, aka like looking for Beastmaster plus tank. Most chats will kick you if you're looking for a team, but you're not offering to tank yourself. That's why I mentioned earlier, if you do learn how to be base tank here, you can just pretty much form a team whenever you want in any of these friend chats. My experience with PVMing FC is most people will require tier 90 gear or whatever when they're forming a Beastmaster team, and probably require power armor as well. Not bad for a mainscaper as long as you have those stats. You can just buy even cheap gear and get away with it. Pretty annoying for an iron until I found iron clans. Aside from regular FCs like that, where you kind of just wait for people who are running Beastmaster or willing to tank it to form teams, there are a few other friend chats that are raids specific. These friend chats I will list below as well in the description, because there are too many of them to mention here. They're hit and miss. It depends on how you want to PVM. Most of these will require Discord chat, especially for doing the full raid, and most of these will really just run full raids as opposed to just Beastmaster. So if you are looking to learn the full raid experience, which, like I mentioned, Yakimaru is substantially harder and one of the hardest, generally speaking, still group bosses in the game, but also gives a lot more rewards, roughly double the value of Beastmaster Durzag's rewards, and I think better drop rates all around for everything. But you must be pretty committed to PVMing with a group to learn it. For example, my only experience with one of these clans is Raid FC. I didn't actually get to raid with them because I was a very much lower level Iron than I am now, and I didn't have power armor, and they required power armor as well as Discord voice chat. I still don't really have magic power armor because I don't care about it at the moment, but yeah, that's one of the restrictions of a group like that. So if you're not super social and still willing to get into this, one of those groups is probably not the thing for you, and probably just waiting around in a more common PVMing FC until a Beastmaster run is done is going to be the way to go. You'll get less runs that way, but it's less intensive and requires less of you, or less of your attention, I should say. So that all being said, you will likely only be running Beastmaster once every few days. But actually that's fine because there's no reason to run it anymore. These Mazcab Raids are actually unique to RuneScape bossing in general because you can only claim loot from each boss in the raid, Durzag and Yakimaru, once every 2 days. Or if it's been more than 4 days since your last raid, you can reset the lock on this and claim twice in a row. So, long story short, you can only kill Durzag once every 2 days and get loot from him there. If you can run it and join teams more than that and do it as much as you like, but you'll get a warning that you're not going to get any loot. The only possible loot you can get from running multiple Durzags back-to-back like that is the Little Tuzzy pet, or you can get a chance at the Little Tuzzy pet. This is not the Beastmaster pet that I get here. They get from Beastmaster's helmet drop. It's a separate pet that you get by just checking Beastmaster's corpse. The last thing I'll mention about loot at this experience is that there are a few things you can do to improve the loot or the chances of loot that you get. First of all, there's a quest called Call of the Ancestors that takes place on Mazcab here. You should do that if you haven't yet, because as a reward you will get several reroll tokens, and they simply allow you to just reroll the drops at one of the raid's bosses, so that's super cool. And you can try to slowly max out your Gobi reputation. Having max reputation of 5,000 here will allow you to actually just reroll the drops on every kill. This reputation does take a really long time to get, as there is well, there are a few activities you can do one time that get you a bunch of reputation, and then there are a bunch of repeatable daily activities in the Nimi Forest, which some players like to do anyways for some skilling experience, but I've never liked to do much. Anyways, there's a daily cap on how much you can do that, and it will take many days to max out your reputation just doing that daily. The way I like to get more reputation is by Gobi Burial Charms. These are obtainable as a semi-common, semi-rare drop from Beastmaster or Yakimaru, and they're also obtainable from the Traveling Merchant shop sometimes. Basically, when you get these charms, you take them to the graveyard over here, and you bury them, and you get varying amounts of Mazcab reputation. If you are going for Octo tank equipment that you can get as a reward from Durzag or Yakimaru, in the Raids reward shop, you can buy the non-Octo equivalent of each armor piece for kind of a lot of techie. As a reference, each Beastmaster kill gives you like 1,000 to 1,500 techie, and you can see from the prices of gear here that it'll take you several kills to buy just any piece of gear. Anyways, owning any of this basic gear that you can buy from the shop increases the chance of getting that respective Octo piece as a drop. Now, the Octo pieces exist for, there's a set for magic, ranged, and melee, and they always drop in order. So first, you'll get the boots of each set first. So in my case, for example, I have the boots for the melee set, the boots for the range, and the magic set. The next time I get an armor piece drop, it'll be Octo leggings for one of the styles. And it goes like this until you have all the armor pieces, and the last pieces that you get are the torso chest pieces, I believe. Those are worth the most if you high alch. So if you're looking to make money off of octo armor pieces. You should wait until you have, I mean, this will take a long time, but you should wait until you have pretty much all of them, except for the last chest piece, and then whenever you get it, just keep alching that because it's worth the most. And with that, we have reached the end of this video. I hope this helped make Beastmaster a little bit more clear to you if you're not familiar with it or haven't really tried it before, or if you've been looking into the other basic rules and haven't been able to figure out how to yet. In my opinion, this is one of the more fun group bossing encounters that you can do that is kind of a pain to find a team for sometimes, but I think possibly easier than finding a team for other high-level bosses because players' requirements for high-level bossing teams are high sometimes. And if you're not quite there yet, this is generally easier to get into, and it's a good way to learn defensives and how to deal with multiple mechanics coming at you all at once. If you enjoyed this video and are still with me here, thank you very much. I appreciate your support. I also appreciate a like on this video and a subscribe if you would like to see more content like this. I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you.